All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we're going to be talking Oklahoma versus Houston, game two, right around the corner here. I'm going to preview that. I'm going to talk a little bit about Houston and what we know, what we've researched so far, and what we expect out of Oklahoma. Not going to lie to you guys, probably going to be a lot more Oklahoma because Houston did not look good last week in their week one opener against UNLV. Um, Before we get into anything, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what your thoughts, your expectations of this week two bout for Oklahoma. What you want to see, what you'd like to see, things you want to improve, and we'll be talking about all that stuff throughout the video, like I said. So hit the comment section below to follow along with us. All right, Houston visiting Oklahoma, week two. Another night game, two night games in a row. That's huge because Oklahoma is more used to two. The Big 12 might as well put us starting at 9 a.m. every single week. That's what it felt like when we were in the Big 12 not that long ago. So big change there. Hopefully a lot more tailgating, a lot more fans are showing up, and it is the throwback weekend where the team is wearing their new throwback unis. We'll see if there's any sort of you know good juju there, and when it comes to just dominating this team. Last week Oklahoma's defense looked really good, while Houston's offense looked not so good. Brandon, what do you expect out of this weekend from Oklahoma, and maybe a little bit about what you think Houston might be able to do against this team?
Yeah, I'm gonna start by just saying shout out Emily, our friend. I was talking to her earlier, and she said she asked for a shout out on the podcast, and I don't really know how to just bring that in as we go along. So there you go, Em. You got it. Shout out Emily Taylor. Football, Houston sucks. This is another game. I think similar to Temple, where I hate these games. Again, I think it's more so a lose lose than anything. Oklahoma has to play perfect, or else everybody's gonna freak out. But really, what I want to see from the Oklahoma standpoint, last week you gave up 4 sacks, right? That we have to improve on. You can't give that up, especially against Temple. And I'll agree on that. That is some criticism of Oklahoma from week one that I think is very fair. I'm hoping the under on 4 sacks this week. Gavin Sawchuk only carried the ball, I think, 6 or 7 times last week. I want to see that number go up, and I want to see his averages go up a little bit. I want to see, running back one, Gavin Sawchuk, have anywhere from 20 to 25 carries. I mean, run him. Maybe not 20, 15 to 20 carries. Let's do that. I want him to be close to 100, I think, is what I'm kind of looking to be around there, and less than 4 sacks. I'm curious to see what they do with the receiver room. I think that's another huge question mark going into this game. You're going to win this game if you're Oklahoma. You don't have to worry about that. But I'm very curious to see what happens now with Jalil Farouk out, with the entire rotation of the team. I think that's going to be something very interesting. And if Branson Hickman doesn't go, what do they do there? So like those are I think the big things that I'm looking forward to watching this week. Because again, Houston is just, they're not a very good program, man. They're a 4-win team in the Big 12 last year. They lost their 2 leading receivers from a season ago. Their quarterback, Donovan Smith, last year had a decent season completion-wise percentage. He was a 65% passer, 22 touchdown passes, which is fine, but he's turnover prone, and he showed that week one against UNLV. He was 50% completion percentage against UNLV and threw 2 interceptions. They're just they're a long ways away from an Oklahoma, talent wise, and just I think it's a game that Oklahoma should win pretty convincingly. I just want to see us, improve from week one offensively. On the defensive side of the ball, you really can't ask for much more of an improvement. You kind of want to stay. If they stay right where they were week one, I think we're okay with that. If they force another six turnovers and have 12 takeaways through 2 games, I don't think anyone's going to bitch.
I agree. I mean, I think for me offensively, yeah, the offensive line is an easy one, but I think Jake Taylor coming back is going to help sure it up a little bit. Maybe not completely, as if Branson Hickman was like if Branson Hickman was still playing, and apparently Coach Venables said that he was looking good at practice Monday morning, so maybe it's not an injury that will keep him out for a long time. Uh, I doubt he plays this week just because, like you said, this is a game very similar to Temple where Oklahoma, as if they play their game, if they play disciplined football, they should win. No problem, honestly. So maybe not a reason to trot them out there, give them another week to rest up. Um, and then to me, it's the wide receivers, like you mentioned. The rotation's going to be different, right? I don't know if Nick Anderson is playing. I don't think he is. I think at this point it would have been announced, and Venables early in the week said that he is expected to play sooner rather than later, but that doesn't mean this week particularly. Jaquez Petaway apparently is going to start taking a bigger role in this offense, so he might get more go. Uh, he Venables spoke highly on Reagan's freshman, so he might get a little bit more go since there's some opportunities out there for these younger guys now. So that's what I'm looking at. And then how does this playbook expand? Because Jackson Arnold said that when he was on the Paul Feinbaum show, that they do expect this playbook to open up a little bit. Well, he didn't say a little bit, but he said that it's expected to open up. How much does it open up? Again, especially with the rotation at wide receivers, you would assume that it would be maybe not full blown like you know the their full playbook come week 2, but maybe like 50%, 30%. What does that look like? And then on the defensive side, can they create more turnovers? The only reason I say that, not because they played a poor game last week, because that's definitely not the case. They created 6 turnovers. Great game on that side. Got to the quarterback a lot. Can they keep that up? Because that is one thing that Oklahoma has done over the last couple years, including with Brent Venables, is sometimes they get off to a hot start in the first couple weeks, but it doesn't sustain. Um, Not turnover wise so much, but getting to the quarterback, getting in the backfield more often with that heavy rotation of guys. I'd love to see Grayson Halton out there again, making those kind of plays. Um, how did the other guys trickle in a little bit, and then with defensive backs, do Woody and Gentry get some playing time now? It's week 2. While you do want to prevent any injury, you at the end of the day, it's football. Even if you trot them out week 12 and you're perfect 11-0, they're still risking injury after 12 weeks. If you rested them up until the national championship, like there's always a risk of injury. So you might as well get them in football shape so that they're ready for Tennessee, because that is right around the corner. And while us as fans are looking forward to it and probably looking ahead, as players they got to be ready for every week, week in and week out, and they're not going. The Tennessee game can't be their first one out there,
No,
at least in my opinion.
no, I agree. I mean, do we see Billy Bowman? You think this week he's a guy that sat completely the entirety of last game? I think Peyton Bowen sat a little more than I'd like to see him sit throughout the season. In a game that was easy to decide. Houston again, not very good, but definitely better than Temple. So it will be fun to see, the defense get pushed a little bit harder. Kind of see how they react. I expect them to be up to the challenge of Houston and kind of lock them down. I think the receiver thing you bring up is interesting, especially with if Nick Anderson really is not playing this game. So then you roll out Deion Burks, Andrew Anthony, I think is your 1 and 2 in some variety or whatever, maybe one's in the slot. But I think if they're both out, I think we're going to see some deep shots. That's where we can see the playbook expand a little bit, because if you're playing guys like Jaquez Petaway or Zion Raggins, those are guys that can straight up fly. And so can Deion Burks. I mean, you're 3/4 of your receivers, if those are the 4, are burners. I mean, guys that can turn it on and go. Ivan Cariano is a guy that we saw a little bit of. Brennan Thompson is another guy that can just flat up fly. So, I think that would be kind of fun if we see Jay take a couple shots this game. We really only saw two deep passes last week against Temple. The first throw of the game, that perfect pass to Jalil Farouk, and then later in the game he actually underthrew one to Brennan Thompson down the sideline. So I mean, I'd like to see a little bit more of that. Do we see guys like Taylor Tatum? His name escaped me for a second there. Guy that we talked about in our recap video on Tuesday is a guy that looked, and again, I know it's Temple, and I know it's late in the game and he was doing it, but he looked fantastic. I mean, he had like 5 carries for 60 yards or something like that, touchdown. I think it'd be kind of fun if he gets a little bit more in the mix in the early going of the game, a little bit of a 1-2 there maybe, or Javante. I'm more so excited to see our improvements from week one versus anything that Houston's going to bring. I think with these previews, they're a lot of fun, but I think we're not going to really have to deep dive into the other program until that Tennessee game.
I agree. I mean, on the Houston side, like, and it kind of sounds like Temple last week, and we were saying it in a preview last week too. Like it does. Brandon, I agree with Brandon. Where like we don't have to take a big deep dive, especially with like this Houston team. They are basically a brand new team. They just hired Willie Fritz, who was previously the head coach at Tulane. After 1 week, they didn't look really good. Their only week under that this coach, they looked terrible. And UNLV isn't a bad team per se. I think you said you looked it up earlier today. Last year UNLV won 9 games, but they didn't really have a high quality win, even if it is for someone at in UNLV's conference. You wouldn't expect them to come into a game against a Big 12 team and make it look that ugly, because Houston could have easily been uh, blanketed and kept it 0. They just got lucky and got, you know, that's a last second touchdown there, when it was pretty much out of reach. Like there wasn't going to be a shot that they were going to win that game. Where the reason we're saying that about Houston's, like, again, not great. The quarterback turned it over 2 times last week against UNLV. Their touchdown came with their backup quarterback towards the end of the game. They didn't run the ball particularly well. Passing, I think the quarterback had a little under 150 yards or around that mark, so nothing crazy. They didn't show much of anything good. Like I think sometimes we can go in against lesser opponents and say, okay, well, they can still run the ball well, so there's something about that offense that you need to worry about, and Oklahoma needs to shore up that aspect and not let it get to them. That's not the case here. Now, if they turn it, like, flip the switch and start going run heavy, because apparently their running back is pretty good, maybe that's a difference. But they didn't show that last week.
Yeah, I think with Houston, if you want to talk of a positive, I guess, if you will, then that UNLV game last week is they held the Rebels. I think it's the Rebels, right? UNLV. I don't even know their name, but they held them to like 113 yards passing, but they also ran for almost 200 against them. That's kind of why I'm alluding to. Because I mean, last week it wasn't great for Gavin Sawchuk, and again, it was limited attempts and whatever we had our problems there. But that's something that we have to see improvement on as we get deeper and deeper into the season. 6 carries for 15 yards is not going to beat your Tennessees, your Auburns, your Texases. You have to be better than that there. And so I want to see. We need to see some sort of improvement there. And then with Houston, you mentioned their offense. They had 100, and I think, hold on, I'm pulling up real quick, but they threw the ball for 209 yards and rushed for 50 yards last week. I mean, I don't know if they fell behind the 8 ball early with their quarterback turning the ball over and kind of abandoning the run game. The box score would kind of indicate that, with their leading rusher having 17 yards on 2 carries. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's a game that feeling good about, but it's another game again that I can't stand. These are the lose games as Oklahoma fans, because the masses expect absolute perfection in these contests, and it drives me crazy.
Well, and I think to an extent, especially with all the question marks that Oklahoma did come into the season with, is like you just got to answer them, soothe any of those concerns with a fan base or with national media, whatever it is, so that getting into the SEC, like they're probably still going to be doubted because it's going to be going, non-conference jump to SEC, but we know Oklahoma can do it. You also can't look like, you can't have your offensive line look like that in these first 3 games, even if it's the like rotational stuff. Uh, you just can't. You can't let these problems persist. So that'll also be interesting. The combination of players. Will they let? Are they going to put Big Sexy back at a left tackle and then uh, get a new guard in? It seems like Hatchet is going to be sticking at center for the foreseeable future. And then Nueyu is going to be there at a guard spot, hopefully, and then Jake Taylor being back. Like, who is going to be? What's the left side going to look like? I guess is my big question. And then, yeah, the running game. Last week, the fact that Houston gave up, what'd you say, 195
195 on the
yards?
ground.
Yeah, on the ground. Like, Oklahoma got 220 last week and put up 52 points. So, if they can have a dominant running performance, I think you kind of, and you got to be okay with Jackson Arnold having a similar stat line as last week. We'd love to see like 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, but if you get 300 yards as a team, win by 40, you're golden.
Yeah, I was going to say just like to wrap it up for me again. I'm just going to go back to what I said at the beginning. I think clean up the offensive line. 4 sacks can't happen. That's like the one point that I will agree over and over again with on people who say OU was terrible week 1, because they weren't terrible week 1, but the 4 sacks, 100%. I'm with you on that. Protect the quarterback better, rush the ball better, and the receiver spot's gonna be very interesting. I think no matter who they throw in there, if Nick Anderson is out, that's gonna be interesting to see how they navigate without him there. The return of Jake Taylor, those 4 things, all offensively for me, is like the things I'm looking forward to, just because I expect this defense to come out there and look very similar to that I did in week 1. This is an opponent that they should be able to bully around. So I'm curious on those 4 things on the offensive side of the ball. And my last question for you, it's a 28-point spread. It's OU minus 28. I'm hitting it. Where are you on that?
I would agree. And I was about to bring that same thing up. I think it's interesting that this week is a 28 or 27.5 point spread versus last week being 42. I know Temple was not very good last year, and it's Houston. They're supposed to be a power conference school, but they didn't look good. Like the fact that that line is still, I guess, less than 30. Well, it's still a big gap, is interesting to me. I think Oklahoma still covers. The over unders set at 52.5. Also over. Oklahoma scored 52 by themselves last week against a bad defense. This defense did not show, the Houston defense did not show that they were good last week, so should be just fine. One last thing though, I think if Oklahoma does open up the playbook, and it meaning like they're probably going to pass it more, then you got to make sure that Jackson Arnold's making the right decisions, because last week he didn't really need to, like, the margin for error was really big. Like, you started in plus territory more often than not. Your run game was doing really well. I think I saw a stat earlier today. There wasn't a run play that Oklahoma ran last year that went for less than 4 yards. So when you're running deep, offense is going that well. Like, dump off routes are there more often than not. He didn't. It's not like they stretch the field a ton going downfield. So if they do give him those opportunities, does he take care of the football? So that's my thing to watch too if the offense is opened up.
I kind of think to that point, there's pros and cons against, opening your playbook up all the way or not against teams like this. Obviously, not opening up and not showing everything is you can bust it out later in the bigger games. You can show a better team things they haven't seen before, and that's definitely a huge pro. But I think a pro of open up and slinging it is exactly that. If let's say they do, and Jackson Arnold makes some bad decisions, some what do you do in moments, it's better to do it here. And I think you at some point you gotta. And that's why I'm not a head coach. I don't know the right answer, but you kind of gotta let him in a real live game action. Take a couple shots. Let him. If he's gonna throw a bomb that's picked off, I'd much rather it happen here than a game against Tennessee. Let's say it's 31-27 in the fourth quarter and we're down. That's some like screw around here. if that is, I don't think that's the right thing to say, but you know what I'm getting to.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, this is the time where you can coach it out, make sure he's making the right reads, and now with the iPads, they can have more immediate feedback, so that they can run the exact same play again in the next series. If it's a similar coverage, then he should know where to look because they just went over it in the last time out. So
With
yeah,
you.
that's going to be key. Outside of the stuff we've talked about already, I do want, I guess, to my last point, like, I do want them to open it up. Like, don't, even if it's in plus territory, take some 20-yard shots just to see what his decision making looks like when it comes to stretching out the field.
I think we'd all be okay with that. I think we all want to see him air it up a little bit. I mean, last week he was efficient. He only had eight incomplete passes. Should have been better. We talked about that in a recap because he had 3 or 4 drops. But outside of those two long shots, he really was. I mean, they were all 10. Seemed like 10 yards under throws.
Yeah, game managing last week for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Well, that's everything for this week. I think we're gonna try to bring back our picks Friday next week.
That's fine.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, at some point we're bringing back our picks.
Next, we'll be back.
Here.
I was gonna say we could do it on our Sunday live stream, but I'm an idiot. College football
The
happens
games
on
will be
Saturday.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, games will be over then. And then, as Brandon said, Sunday live stream. Make sure you turn on the notification bell so you know when we're live. We will tweet it out as well. And regular videos on Tuesday and Friday. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss one. Make sure to like the video and go to the comment section. Let us know what you think. Who's going to be the star of the game in your opinion? Will Oklahoma cover? What do you want to see? What would you like to see fixed? I'm sure we're going to see plenty of offensive line stuff in the comments. Make sure to get down there and follow along with us. We're excited for the rest of the season in Game 2 against Houston. Appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you next time.